get started with the session. There are a few members that have just joined. Hopefully, there will be more people as we pass the time. There will be more joining. Okay. Hi, Gurleen. Thanks for joining. Thanks for just a second. Sorry. Then, if you can, make Gurleen as the host, so she's on the screen full time. Gurleen, you'll have to accept the request. You must have.
Yeah, I've accepted it. I've accepted it, and I think it is also live streaming now.
Okay, it is. Alright. Okay, great. I think, yeah, we are then ready to go. Hi, Gulin. Thank you so much for joining in, taking some time out, and sharing the insights that you have. So probably like the people will be seeing Gurleen for the first time. So let me just introduce like her to you. So Gurleen is like a cultural designer. She basically helps or different organization shape their corporate employees and all of the corporate like life within. So she has worked across like many major brands, some of them being Oppo, Mama, L&T. So this has been like a real remarkable, breakthrough with some of the top companies in here. Gulin, also if you could, introduce yourself to all of us, that would also help.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much, Omkar. And hello everyone, people who have joined us from different parts of the world. Good morning, good evening. So my name is Gurleen, and I'm a culture designer and a psychologist. And my background is in psychology, so I did my bachelor's and master's in psychology and specifically organizational psychology. I started my career with Metal Mercer as a psychometrician. Then I worked with a couple of consulting organizations like Sing Talent, Chrysalis, EY, and my last role was with Oppo, the mobile company. I was heading their learning and development segment. And not recently, actually, about 4 or 5 years ago, I started with my own venture called That Culture Thing. So primarily, I help organizations, be it small size, mid size, to even large organization, blue chip organizations, help with their culture consulting. So right from maybe setting up culture from scratch end to end to even how do you propagate culture down in the line when it comes to bigger organizations. And my other work is my individual psychotherapy practice. So I use existential school of psychology, which is part of humanistic school of psychology in my psychotherapy work. So that has been that's about me and my journey of about 12 to 15 years of professional life. And I'm really excited to join this session. And hopefully by the end of the session, people will learn a couple of techniques on how to ace their next interview. So thank you so much, Tanmay and Omkar, for having me here on your show.
Thanks, Gulin. So yeah, like as you said, like we have a like 200 plus community of job seekers who are
Mm-hmm.
associated with AiPply at the moment. So hopefully, the insights that we get from this session will really, help these job seekers to prepare for this interview, right, for the
Right.
upcoming interviews. So like like diving into the the main concern, the like the job seekers are
Right.
basically like basically how important like is to preparation for interview, and before that as well, how important is self awareness and the presence before even walking into an interview.
Yeah. So presence is definitely important, and self-awareness. See, self-awareness is not like a destination that you will reach at, right? Because self-awareness is something that is ever going. So it's something that you are always searching, you are always changing. So it's not that you are a fixed entity and you will end at self-awareness, or there is a destination, really. So self-awareness is more like everyday things. So are you learning more about yourself? What are your strengths? So who am I? What am I good at? And how can I use it for the good of others? So these things, if you can answer in the present moment, that means you are fairly self-aware. Because self-awareness का क्या है, कुछ end नहीं है, right? So ये आपको everyday करना पड़ेगा to know yourself better so that you know your strengths and you can utilize your strengths in any career or even in your personal life. And when you talk about presence, it's definitely important. And that is the most crucial element. The moment you walk into an organization and you are facing a panel, it is the first 2 or 3 minutes that the panelists or the interviewers are looking at you and making up a mind, right? And when I say first thing, we all know the importance of first impressions. And I'm saying that first impression is definitely not the last impression, but you can definitely create lasting impression. And we will talk more on how can you create positive first impressions. But to answer to your question, which is more about self-awareness, definitely it is helpful. And again, I'm reiterating for the audience, there are 3 questions and that is the starting point. Who am I? So, really knowing yourself. What am I good at? Knowing your natural strengths and how can I use it for the good of others? Which is more about how do you apply your strengths in your work life.
Right, absolutely. So like mainly, the user, like the community members that we have are like we have a large pool of freshers. So some of them
Right,
might be, appearing for their first job. Some of them are even, might be appearing for their first interview. So
right,
many of the students, when we speak to them, we get to know that they are a bit of like insecure because they are applying for this job. They haven't been tried and they haven't been able to crack any interview as such.
hmm,
So what could be the like tricks, tips, or suggestions, or as a guidance to them? What things you need to focus on, and if there's something that is nothing in your hand that you can nothing to worry about. So mainly they are like insecure and less underconfident. So what things
right.
could help them build uh for their this
So,
interview?
yeah, yeah. So coming to think of it, this nervousness or insecurity कि मैं अपना बेस्ट दे रहा हूँ या दे रही हूँ, मैं मेरे को कैसे परसीव किया जा रहा है द मोमेंट आई एंटर द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. ऑफ कोर्स यू आर सराउंडेड बाय स्मार्ट पीपल, राइट? एंड देर ऑल नॉलेजेबल पीपल, स्पेशली व्हेन यू जस्ट स्टार्टिंग योर करियर. सो थोड़ा नर्वसनेस आपके मन में अगर आ रहा है तो वो जाहिर सी बात है, वो आएगा ही. एंड it is completely normal to feel nervous. If you are not nervous, that actually is a problem, I think. Right? So nervousness is okay. So there are a couple of techniques on how you can, manage your nervousness or insecurity that is happening in the moment. Insecurity का क्या है कि ठीक है momentarily है, but insecurity is something, it is a very hard word, it's a very heavy feeling. So insecurity is something you might even feel insecure even after 10 years of your career, 15 years of career. So we will park insecurity for a while. Let's talk about how do you deal with nervousness. So first step is the moment you enter into any room, think of that person as your equal, right? Because nervousness usually happens when we feel that the other person is judging me. Of course, they are judging you. I know that it is an interview, they are going to be judging you. But if you think of it not like an interview per se, but rather as a conversation, right? It is a conversation that you are having with a human being. So rather than seeing that person as someone, oh, वो तो boss है या वो HR manager है, वो कितना बड़ा आदमी है, right? So instead of putting people on a pedestal, think of that person like a fellow human being and start with a normal conversation, right? And think of it as if it's a dialogue happening, right? ज्यादा से ज्यादा क्या हो जाएगा, आप रिजेक्ट हो जाओगे या फिर रोल आपके हिसाब का नहीं होगा. मे बी यू आर नॉट अ कल्चर फिट, which is completely fine. But take this opportunity as if it's a normal, one-on-one equal conversation going on, and you will feel that your nervousness will diminish a little bit. So that is one. Second is there are a couple of techniques in order to manage your nervousness, because nervousness is, it's your psychological trigger, right? Because you are afraid in that moment. Oh, other people are judging me. What do I do? So what happens is you get into fight, flight, freeze mode, right? Usually you don't end up fighting with the interviewer, of course, but you would want to just run away from that situation, that I no, I wish मेरा ये cancel हो जाए या फिर online हो जाए. You want to run away from that. Or maybe you freeze in that moment. You sit on the chair, you are being interviewed, and your mind goes totally blank. You are not even hearing their questions, right? So you might get into a freeze response. A couple of techniques. One is breathing technique. Yeah. So the moment you enter into the room, sit on the chair and have a few deep breaths. Breathe in.
I think there's some connection issue. Gurleen, I think there's some connection issue.
You will feel.
At your Hi, Gurleen. I think there's some connection issue at your end. Uh, yeah, are you back? Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. I hope I am audible to you.
I think there's some slight issue at your end. I could also see some red, this like the bars in here. Now it's yellow. So I think we can continue. Yeah, now it's back white. So I think we can continue. If you could probably go back 20 seconds from where you were like speaking.
Yeah,
And
I was just saying that, nervousness is something very, like, it's normal to feel nervous.
right,
And there are a couple of techniques. One is treat that person like you're equal. You are having a conversation. It's just a conversation that you are having. It's a dialogue. Second is a couple of deep breathing exercises. So the moment you enter into the room, have a few deep breaths. Breathe in, hold for 3 or 4 seconds, and breathe out. So do 4 or 5 of these breathing exercises, and you will feel less nervous by the end of like maybe a minute or two. And that's when you venture into the conversation like you're having a conversation with another person, a human being. Yeah, so that's how you deal with nervousness.
right. Great one, like, to calm it a bit. Like, don't think too much, but just focus on the things that you need to, like focus on. So with the way that you said that, we need to enter with a calm mind and everything. But also that, how one can, build rapport with the interviewer and not without sounding too rehearsed or too, predictable. Because people also with the rehearsing and they just too like over prepare, right?
Yeah.
Maybe if that shouldn't be the case, so maybe how one can build rapport uh, with the interviewer.
Yeah. So the first thing is, you don't necessarily have to say it out loud through words. You can also demonstrate it through your body language. So the moment you enter the room, smile. Smile is the shortest distance between the other person and you, right? So just smile, and through body language, the moment you enter, you look at the panel. If there are like more than 3 people, you look at everyone, you maintain that eye contact, and make sure that you shake hands with everyone, right? So that demonstrates confidence, and it also shows that you are, you are prepared, but at the same time you are not overstepping, right? So just shake hands. And there is a pro tip that I want to give. If there is a lady in the interviewing panel, right, so make sure that you're looking at the ladies first. Yeah. And don't, if you're a man, don't initiate the handshake on your own with the lady. So wait for the lady to begin the handshake or initiate the handshake with you, right? So that is one tip that I wanted to share. And other tips are when it comes to building rapport. So when you sit, again, going back to my previous point, have a conversation. Think of that person like a fellow human being. You're just having a conversation, right? So just sit, smile, exchange a couple of small talk. And there are some people who say, "Oh, I don't like small talk. Small talk is not for me," etc., etc. But small talk is actually just a way of beginning the conversation. So you don't have to spend like 15 minutes on small talk, right? Hi, hello, I'm so and so. Pleasure to meet you. Thank you for taking your time to interview me. Say a few things like that, 1 or 2 lines, sit down, and naturally you will get into the rhythm. So that's how you build the rapport. And then I think the interviewer will definitely follow suit from there onwards. Yeah.
Right. like breaking the ice when once you
Yeah,
start.
breaking the ice.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
yeah. So right, right. So like some gestures that like some of the things that you just mentioned that some of the gestures are also prove vital during your interview, like your hand gesture or your body language. So what could be some of the common mistakes that like the interviewers like make while while giving interview, like so, like is it important also eye contact, some background noise from eye.
Yeah, there was some background noise. Yeah, yeah. You were saying?
So some common mistake that like interviews make while giving the interviews, maybe not
Yeah,
making the eye contact or not making like some of the body languages or just sitting straight. So some of the
right.
common mistakes and how we can or like what should be
Yeah.
done for that.
Yeah. So there are a couple of points. One, जैसे मैंने पहले बता रही थी कि first impressions are crucial, right? And I want to reiterate people who have just joined. We definitely know that first impressions are not the last impressions. First impression जरूरी नहीं है कि जो आप पहले बार आप देखते हो वो accurate ही होगा. But at the same time, you can at least try to make it a lasting impression. I'll give you a couple of analogies. Let's say you are an interviewer, right? और आपके पास कोई candidate आया है. Now candidate is very shabbily dressed, wearing like maybe a crop top and torn jeans. Hair is not properly made. It's not well kept. Right. So, what sort of impression will you get just by looking at that person for 10-20 seconds? Right. Just think over it. I'll give you another example. Think of a person who has got like really, really long curly hair and they're wearing like black t-shirt, with maybe metal band stickers on it, and then maybe shorts and a sandal. Yeah. So if a person like that, if you're dressed up like that and you come for an interview in a corporate setup, what sort of impression will you create in your mind, right? कहने का मतलब ये है कि जब हम किसी को भी देखते हैं, कोई भी इंसान को देखते हैं, we make snap judgments, right? Even when you are traveling in a metro or when you're taking a stroll outside, you look at people around you, right? Your mind is always creating stories. We look at somebody and we make snap judgments. And I'm not judging people for judging people, but it's quite natural to think like that. So what I'm trying to say here is intentionally create an impression that you want to create for the other person. So when you are entering into the room, when you are facing an interview, make sure that you are dressed nicely, right? Use a light perfume. For men, you can wear a shirt, pant, well kept. Even if you have a beard, make sure that it is trimmed nicely, right? You are looking presentable at least, which shows that you are serious. If you have made an effort to dress up well for the interview, that shows your seriousness. So that is one. Second is, I've already spoken about it, some of the non-verbal cues like smiling, shaking hands. And when you shake hand also, it has to be a firm shake hand, right? It has to be a firm handshake and not like limping, not like a submissive handshake. So make sure it is assertive handshake. Another tip I want to share is punctuality. Yeah, so people will also judge you for whether you are punctual or not. If the interview starts at 3 p.m., make sure that you are there at least 15 minutes in advance because something may happen. Make sure that you keep buffer in mind when you leave for the interview, right? So punctuality becomes very important and people unconsciously see all of these cues in you, and even before they have made up their mind, when unconsciously they're always making up their minds, right? So make sure that you dress up well, you smile, you shake hand. Punctuality, and another is positive attitude, right? Don't be very pessimistic. Yeah, so oh, the weather was so bad, this, that. So the moment you start talking negatively, you are creating that vibe in the environment. So make sure that your attitude is positive, right? You are energetic. So all of these techniques uh, in collaboration, in combination, will help you present yourself better, and you will be able to create a good, lasting impression, even if it is the first impression. Okay, I see a couple of familiar people in the chat. Hi, Lakshya. Hi, Good to see you. Yeah, please continue, Omkar.
Yeah. So, right, Guli, like, we talk the impression and the positive vibes that you give out would also make an impression in front of the, interviewer. So like we like largely spoke about the offline interview, but now there have been, larger part which have been conducted are the virtual interviews. So like,
Right.
how like the world is shifting towards that and how one can, like prepare on that front. Like how different is that and how one can be prepared for that as
Yeah,
again
yeah,
in virtual
yeah.
interview.
Yeah, that's a good one because nowadays we have a lot of interviews that are taken virtually online. So online is just a medium, right? So how you present yourself doesn't change because when I say dress well, so make sure when you are having a virtual interview, even in those instances, you are dressed nicely, right? Because uh, it's just a mode that is changing. And especially if your camera is on. Yes. And second point is turn your camera on, right? Because one is virtual interview के बहुत सारी pros and cons. Pros ये हैं कि okay, you are in your own comfortable setting, you are not outside, so that is a pro. The con is that you are not able to demonstrate your body language as much as you can do in a real life scenario, in an offline scenario, right? But at least from your head to maybe here, you are visible. So make sure you are dressed nicely and make sure that you at least turn your camera on, especially if the interviewer has turned their camera on, because it does not look professional when the interviewer is on camera and the candidate is not, right? Because then you are not even showing your best self. You're not showing them your facial expressions, your non-verbal cues, right? And the third one is check your internet connection. So that is bare minimum. Yeah, make sure that you have solid, good internet connection. That is tip number three. Tip number four is treat virtual interview like you would treat any offline interview. So it's no different. In fact, probably it is more difficult, right? So make sure that you are well prepared even for a virtual interview.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right. So yeah. So Guli, like any like we spoke about different ways what to do, what not to do. But are there any like typical frameworks or techniques if one has to really prepare for that step by step? So if there
Yeah.
are any like we have like heard of like like different methods. So is there any methods techniques that one can like use and prepare for like maybe star or something like this?
Yeah, yeah. So I think you got it right. Star feedback, star method is something that is known in the industry. And it is, I think it is one of the easiest ways to answer interview questions, especially when the questions that the interviewer asks start with something like, tell me about a time when. So tell me about a time when, say you demonstrated leadership ability. So if this is a question like this, right? So STAR method stands for S stands for situation. Yeah. So what was going on, right? T stands for task. What is it that you had to do personally? A stands for action. Action means what did you actually do? And R stands for result, which means what happened in the end. So, what was the result of it? Right. So, let me give you an example that's super relatable, especially for college students and freshers, because in case we have college students and freshers here in the call. So, let's say, and especially for a college student, मुझे मालूम है that they probably do not have a corporate experience. So sometimes it becomes difficult for them to explain their leadership quality or any quality for that matter. So how do they share what they have done? So उनको ऐसा नहीं कि उनको एक job करनी पड़ेगी in order to answer this question. They can also answer questions using some of the experiences that they may have witnessed in college. Yeah, so let me give you an example. Let's say during a college fest, a person was in an organizing team, and they were in charge of managing entry for one of the events in a fest, right? So this is the situation. right? So let's start with the situation. If I was a candidate and if I were to use a star model, I would say something like, I will first describe the situation that, hey, it was a big event. Let's say Yo-Yo Honey Singh was performing, and suddenly we had a much larger crowd at the gate than expected. People started pushing and things were getting very tense. Yeah. So now you have described the situation. Now, what was the task for you? So you can say that my job was to make sure that people entered safely and that the crowd did not get out of control. Right. So that was the task. Now, action. मैंने क्या किया? What is the action that I took from my end? So the action was, so I quickly called a few volunteers. We set up a quick queue system using ropes and chairs, and I coordinated with the security. I also got on the mic and I started announcing clear and calm instructions. I started asking people to be patient and follow the line. Yeah, so this is the action that I took. And what was the result of my action? So the result was within 15 to 20 minutes, the crowd calmed down, the entry became smooth, and no one got hurt. Later, you can also add something like, later, one of my professors even appreciated how we handled the situation without panicking. Yeah. So you're also sharing that what is the feedback that you got from other people, right? So to reiterate, that's how easy to use star method is. It's real, it's simple, and it also shows problem solving, teamwork, and leadership, even if it wasn't in an office setting. So I think star feedback methodology or this framework, if you keep this at the back of the mind when you're explaining anything to the interviewer, you will come across as more clearer, as someone who knows what they did and what was the result of it. Because at the end of the day, it is the result that matters to the interviewer, that what was it that you did, what was the action, and what was the result of that action, right? So the star, that's how you can use the star methodology of when you are interviewing.
Great, great. Understood. As someone who works at the intersection of culture as well as psychology, so what future ready skills do you think should every candidate should work towards or build towards? How they can try and get those skills. So what would be the minimum like skills? So maybe you can just give us a little bit like what are the future ready skills or some of the skills also given the AI being in the picture,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right. So some of the things that so what could be the some of the critical skills that you think that would be needed moving forward?
So I feel that AI definitely, I mean, AI revolution, we are talking about AI so
Mhm.
much, especially now. So I feel that people in the future, and even now for that matter, we are not going to lose our jobs to AI, but we are going to lose jobs to people who know how to leverage AI, right? So it's not about the AI as a tool, it's about people who know how to use this tool. So AI awareness is something which has now become bare minimum, right? So when I talk about AI, you don't necessarily need to know Python language or Java language or really know how to code. But we all use ChatGPT, right? And we have like I think 10 people in the room here, and there are people watching us live on LinkedIn. I'm sure that 95% of us are using AI, especially ChatGPT or Perplexity or any AI models like that. So what I've noticed over the past few months is it's also about how do you make use of that AI. So prompt skills, what sort of prompts are you giving to the machine, to the AI, is game changer. So how I interact with AI versus how someone else is interacting with the AI, that is what is going to, uh, you know, differentiate us from each other. So AI awareness. And at this point, I also want to probably I can probably share my screen because World Economic Forum recently shared the top 10 skills of 2025. They actually came up with this report back in I think 2023. I hope my screen is visible to all. Is it
Yeah.
visible?
Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah.
visible.
Okay, so these are the 10 skills of 2025, and they came up with this report in 2020, around 2020 to 2021. As you can see over here, on the blue color, if you see at the blue color code, it says problem solving. Yeah, so problem solving is the number one skill. And you see analytical thinking and innovation, complex problem solving, critical thinking analysis, creativity, originality, initiative, reasoning, problem solving, ideation. So one, two, three, four, five. 5 out of 10 skills of the future are related to problem solving. Yeah. So problem solving is all about how you think. And when it comes to thinking, I'm talking about strategic thinking, thinking big picture, thinking prompts also when you're interacting with AI. What exactly do you need? Right? So you have to be a really, really good manager because you are managing AI. Right? So you need to know that what is the problem that I'm trying to solve. Right? So writing prompts is also part of problem solving. So problem solving is very, very crucial. Thinking critically, thinking logically, especially now when you have information overload. इतना सारा इंफॉर्मेशन हमें मार्केट में मिलता है, कोई भी आप खोलो, लिंक्डइन खोलो, इंस्टाग्राम खोलो, फेसबुक खोलो, there is information everywhere, there is fake news everywhere. So critical thinking is also engaging with this, content that is there and filtering out important aspects from the noise around. And that is where your logical thinking and critical thinking will play a huge role. Second is self management, which is in the color green. And as you can see, there are two skills over here: active learning and learning strategies, resilience, stress tolerance, and flexibility. So, 2 out of 10 skills are related to self management, which links to your first question, Omkar, when you asked me about self awareness, right? So, learning about yourself, learning emotional intelligence, learning about resilience, ability to bounce back because failures will happen at the the pace that we are going. Failing is inevitable. So how do you bounce back stronger? How do you manage the stress? How do you learn new things? Because we already talked about AI. AI is only getting better, it is only getting smarter. So, in order to use all of that leverage, all of that AI, you have to learn AI as well. So, make sure that you are learning how to use, how to leverage all of these AI concepts. Third aspect or the category of skills is working with people. Yeah, so it is more to do with, interpersonal relationships. And that is again a crucial skill, which is of leadership and social influence. Leadership becomes crucial. Why? Because now we are dealing with, of course, I mean, different generations, millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha will also come in very soon, right? And that won't even take too long, right? So, how do you lead people? How do you coach people? How do you create a psychological safe space for all of them to thrive? So when you want to climb in a career ladder, it becomes equally important, if not more, to have good emotional intelligence, to be able to work with people, to have good interpersonal skills. So leadership and all these skills related to social influence are becoming very, very crucial. And the last is, of course, we have said quite enough about it: technology use and development. You, I'm reiterating, you don't necessarily need to know the coding languages, but it is more about how do you use AI, how do you leverage AI. And again, I want to reiterate that you are not going to lose jobs to AI, you will lose jobs to people who know how to leverage AI. So these are some of the skills which become crucial today and even in the future.
Right, right. So mainly like, the interpersonal or the personal skills, like the soft skills that, people need to focus on. But of course, the people who are from the tech background, they'll have to upskill and keep learning new languages, different, of the tech programs.
Absolutely, because basic things can be automated. Because nowadays you don't necessarily need to know coding language in order to write a code, right? So you need to know that what coding language I need and what do I want. So if you are clear about these two things, you will be able to generate the code easily, even if you don't know the language.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
So yeah.
right.
Okay. See you, Raksha. Bye bye.
Right.
Okay, yeah, please
Mm.
continue.
There's a question in the chat from Sachin Tomar as well.
Okay.
So the question says that, is it good to ask about company growth trend to the interviewer?
And then he says, is the right.
That's the second part of the question.
Okay.
And that is basically him asking for strategy planning, is it better to write on a notepad or on Word by sharing a screen on virtual call?
Strategy planning. Okay. Okay. Is it good to ask about company growth trend to the interviewer? Absolutely. Absolutely. You can ask this question. I don't see any reason why you cannot or should not ask this question. Of course, you can ask. Yeah. And if you could explain the follow-up question, I really did not understand, right? We to show strategy planning by writing on a notepad or a word.
Yeah. So, Sachin, if you're explaining, then you can just unmute yourself and explain. Yeah.
Yeah, hi guys.
Hi. Hi, Sachin.
Yeah, hi. So basically, I want to ask. Let's suppose there is during the virtual call. So
Yeah.
let's suppose there is a like a discussion is going on that we need to showcase the strategy. So at that time, if in case of offline, we can write down the things on the notepad. We can explain through
Yeah.
writing the things. So when we on the virtual call, so is it a good like I can share my screen and open the notepad and I can like start building the I can write down the pointers over there. Like there is a pointer one strategy A B C D. So this is was my actually it was my question.
Yeah. Okay, okay. Now I understand the question. Thank you for the question, Sachin. Absolutely, you can do that. And in fact, that's a brilliant strategy because you when you open the notepad, you are actually doing it right in front of that person, right? Because
Right.
other ways you come prepared and maybe you have asked ChatGPT for all the strategy and you send them the Word document and then you don't know whether you actually did it in real time or not. So I think that is a better strategy wherein it also makes you more credible because you are demonstrating that right in front of the interviewer there and then, right? So that's a good strategy. I think
Oh,
you should definitely follow this.
okay, thanks.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
thanks, Sachin. If there's any other more queries, please feel free to ask. We'll be taking those up in shortly. Other than that, Gurleen, like how networking like is important. Like of course, with the freshers, of course, like the networking, attending different events, how that makes a
Yeah.
difference and can help you land the job that you have dreamed of or like you have thought of.
Yeah, yeah. So networking helps everyone. So it's not just only for the job seekers, but networking is something that is sometimes उसको हम ऐसा सोचते हैं कि नेटवर्किंग का मतलब है कि हम किसी से जितना ज्यादा ले सकें ले लें मतलब यू डोंट हैव टू बी अ टेकर इन ऑर्डर टू नेटवर्क कि हाउ मैं नेटवर्किंग में जाऊं तो मैं उससे भी बात कर लूं मैं उससे भी बात कर लूं उससे भी बात कर लूं सो डोंट फोकस ऑन ब्रेथ सो मच बिकॉज दैट इज नॉट यूजफुल focus on depth. So when you go to a networking event, even if you're talking to 3 people, 4 people that are relevant to your industry, have in-depth conversations with them and don't go with the mindset of taking from people. Go with the mindset of giving. Yeah, so have a giver mentality. नॉट कि ये सोचकर कि मैं जितना दूंगा उतना मुझे मिलेगा क्योंकि यूजुअली ये भी हम सोचते हैं गिव एंड टेक सो देयर इज अ ब्यूटीफुल रिसर्च done by Adam Grant on it. And he has also authored this book called Give and Take. So he found out that turns out there are 3 kind of people. One category of people are takers. Takers वो होते हैं जो सबसे knowledge gain करते हैं आपने शायद realize भी करा होगा maybe in college or even at workplaces that there are some people who are knowledge vultures. They try to extract from you as much as possible, right? And after a point in time, you feel used, you feel exhausted, right? So that is one category. Second category of people are givers. So givers are the people who give without limits, right? So अगर takers हैं तो givers भी हैं उनसे एक क्वेश्चन पूछे तो वो बहुत कुछ अपना शेयर कर देंगे selflessly शेयर करेंगे and they're very kind, they're very compassionate people, right? So that is second category of people. Third category of people are matchers. Matchers are I you scratch my back, I scratch your back, right? कि मैं आपकी हेल्प करूंगी, आप बाद में मेरी हेल्प करोगे, ठीक है? तो ये वाले 3 है। अब इसमें से उन्होंने ये रिसर्च में फाइंड आउट करा है, इनफैक्ट this is a question to all of you also who have joined this panel, this group. So what do you think among these categories of takers, givers and matchers, आपको क्या लगता है कि किस टाइप के लोग, किस कैटेगरी के लोग जो हैं वो ज्यादा सक्सेस एंजॉय करते हैं या जल्दी उनको सक्सेस मिलता है? व्हाट डू यू थिंक? वुड एनीवन लाइक टू टेक अ गेस?
I believe it's givers.
गिवर्स, ओके।
Let's wait if anyone also has to answer. But yeah.
Okay, maybe people can share in the chat section. What do they think? Which category of people have the better success of winning at workplaces? Is it takers, givers, or matchers? Okay, Tanmay says givers. Okay. Okay. So 2 people are saying givers. Okay. So turns out, okay, Aman also, hey, hi Aman. Okay, so turns out takers actually get success faster, but there is a catch there. ठीक है, तो takers को definitely जल्दी success मिलता है. So when they are moving from ground up, like ground to maybe middle management, they are the ones who get success very very fast, but only till mid management. उसके ऊपर वो grow नहीं कर पाते हैं because leadership is all about serving others. Yeah, so we know, we have heard of Simon Sinek. You know, if serving is something that you don't feel comfortable with, then leadership is beneath you, right? So they only grow till mid management. Then we have matchers. Matchers are very smart. They definitely succeed at the workplace. They go really, really high, but fairly high. They also grow till mid management or maybe slightly upper management, but they again do not realize their maximum potential. They don't use their maximum potential. Then we have givers. Now there is a very interesting pattern that the study showed when it comes to givers. So givers क्या होते हैं कि when it comes to ground to middle management, उसमें उनको बहुत टाइम लगता है. टेकर्स उनसे ज्यादा आगे चले जाते हैं, ठीक है, बहुत जल्दी. बट जो कैच ये है कि गिवर्स who know how to maintain boundaries, yeah, so givers who are not sacrificing, they are the ones who reach at the top. So the pace is slightly slower, but when it comes to long term, when they analyzed people for long term, they realized that givers with boundaries, and Adam Grant intentionally called these people otherish givers. Yeah, so they take care of other people, but at the same time, they take care of their own needs. They know how to draw boundaries, how to maintain boundaries, how to communicate boundaries. So givers with boundaries are the people who reach at the top. But giver, and if you are selfless, if you are too kind, too compassionate, too selfless, then you don't grow. So that is the slight difference that the study found. So coming back to your networking question, so be givers. So when you attend any networking event, make sure that you are introducing other people. You are talking to people, you are making introductions, you are helping other people. But at the same time, don't lose your sanity. Don't lose yourself while you are giving, right? So make sure that you have a boundaried relationship with other people. You are giving, but not at the cost of your own happiness or your own self or your own your most important value proposition. So don't lose yourself when you are giving. So that is the style minor, that is a thin line difference between selfless givers and givers with boundaries. Yeah, so interesting study. If anyone is interested, they can go through his TED talk also, which is available on YouTube. Adam Grant, Give and Take.
Surely, Gurleen, like this is a really great insight. I'll myself surely will be taking a look at it, and I will also be suggesting through a community for this one.
Sure.
Yeah, this was a great insight. I mean, it's this would must be some of extension how how these things pan out, and then be a lot of detail. So of course, this will really help the user who is into this professional world, who is
Yeah,
doing this
yeah.
profession.
And I see a comment by Aman here. He says, I think takers can be great IC, but not a good team leader. Absolutely. Takers are really they're really smart at technical skills, right? Because they they gain so much of knowledge. But when it comes to leadership, which is why they get stuck at middle management, they're not able to grow further from there onwards. Yeah.
We also have one question. Tanmay just
Mhm.
posted. What are some red flags interviewers are looking for and we should avoid giving?
Okay. What are some red flags interviewers are looking for we should avoid giving? Okay, one is very common, but very like abruptly saying bad things about your previous employer, right? So you may have problems with your colleagues in the past, maybe with your managers, but if you're blurting it out loud to the interviewer, then it's a no-no. Yeah, so don't do that. Second is some of the red flags. I think some of the red flags could be one is if they ask you that, hey, what is your weakness or what is your area of development, and you say, oh, I'm a perfectionist, I do everything so well, and people get irritated, whatever, and I'm always on time, other people are never on time. So the interview gets to know that, oh, this person is just fluffing, he's just winging it. So make sure whatever you're saying is genuine, it's authentic, right? So when the interviewer is asking about your area of development, they are not really interested in knowing your weakness, but they are interested in knowing whether you take accountability of things that have gone not so well in the past, right? So make sure that even if you have made a mistake, it's a genuine mistake, you talk about that and take accountability, take responsibility. And second is they also want to know how self-aware you are. And if you're saying, no, I'm so hardworking or I'm so punctual that other people cannot keep a pace with me. Yeah, so other people cannot keep a pace with me, I'm so fast. Then the other person will think that, oh, the person probably lacks self-awareness. Yeah. So these are some of the red flags that are coming at the top of my mind, and there could be more, but these are some of the things that are there in my mind at the moment. Yeah.
Somebody gave me a feedback that I usually, whenever I mention my achievements, so I use I a lot rather than we. And that is
Uh,
also like a red flag people look in interviews. Like I was told to
yeah.
look for in an interview as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one. That's a good
Yeah.
one. So make sure you're talking about teamwork, collaboration, because when you are interviewing in an organization, organizations generally look for people who are easy to work with, right? So don't make it about me, myself, and I. Yeah, so make sure that you're talking about the team, collaboration. Yeah, because that's crucial. Yeah.
Just one more thing, Gurleen. So I recently got this recommendation from a colleague in case people, when they're switching jobs, at first, during the first round, they should ask for like a 15 or 20% minimum raise. But once they get the offer, then they should be like, guys, my company wants to retain me. Can you match it to 50 or 60%? Is it a good
Yeah.
do, or has HR caught up to it yet, this strategy, or should we avoid it? Like, what's your take on this?
Yeah, yeah. So, I'll be honest, for the individual, I think it's a good strategy because ultimately you are getting that money. But when it comes to long term, when it comes to your credibility, and if you're doing it over and over and over again, then it may cost you your reputation in the long term. So, for a candidate, what I would say is that choose your game. Do you want to play short term or do you want to play long term? If you want to play short term, you can play for a while, 1 or 2 times is okay. I mean, you will get your, good number, but don't keep sustaining this game because it will do you more harm in the long run. That's my honest answer. Yeah. And when it comes to HR, if you ask me that whether the HR know or not, it's sad, but a lot of organizations um, get into this dilemma or because there is a training cost. There's a lot of cost of training the person, getting that person onboarded. They know the job in and out, and replacing that person costs more money than giving the same person the hike. So that is the reason usually HR managers or leaders tend to match the offer. But as a practice, I personally feel it is not a great practice, because that way everyone will follow suit, follow the same strategy, and then I don't know. I don't know then what is right, what is wrong. So yeah, so it's a very nuanced way of looking at it.
I think it's about moral values and how honest you want yourself to be. But I think it's like at the end it's corporate as well. It's understandable, but is it something you want to associate yourself with, or do you want to lose those reputation points for some better hike? I think it's
Absolutely. So yeah, choose your battle. Is it short term or long term?
got
Yeah.
So, Gurleen, I think the final question for you, like we have covered most of the things in the questions that we had, wanted to. The final thing that, what could be your final or one important advice for, anyone who is going to give their interview, let's say. So, what could be that one, advice or one important suggestion that you would like to give
Hmm.
for a interviewee out there?
One is, I think, don't fluff, don't wing it. So if you don't know an answer to something, don't just fluff, right? Because interviewers are very smart people, they would be able to get it. So if you don't know about something, just say, I don't know. And this is where I want to add something. It's a controversial take, but I think from the 90s till about 2000s, there was so much about confidence. You have to be confident, you have to know all the answers. But cut to now in the 21st century, like I said, there is so much of information around you, there is so much of noise around you. I think this is the time when more than confidence we need self-doubt. Yeah. So self-doubt is good, and I don't say negative self-doubt in the sense that, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough. I'm not talking about imposter syndrome, self doubt, but a little bit of self doubt in terms of intellectual humility is good. By intellectual humility is by intellectual humility, I mean that don't be overconfident, right? So have a self doubt that, hey, you could be wrong as well, right? So don't overpower the conversations when someone has a different point of view and you have a stark completely different point of view. Don't be very quick to dismiss their idea. Listen to their idea, search for evidence, and if you find evidence for a contradictory idea, then be open to accepting it. So I think alongside confidence, have a little bit of self doubt also, because that is crucial in the 21st century. It wasn't so crucial back in the day, but now it is the self doubt more than confidence that I personally feel is more important. Yeah, so these are a couple of tips that I wanted to share.
Great, Gurleen. I think we have come to an end to our segment where we had our Q&A. If there are any other questions, Aman, maybe Sachin, Nandita, Disha, and there's Harshit as well.
just
If there's any other question,
so Gurleen,
yeah,
so recently companies outside India have started employing Indians on contract as well. So
Yeah.
personally, working instigator, working as a contract guy, do you think as a career move it's better to work as a contract and get a better pay, or do you think Indians should stick to Indian companies that are like full-fledged based out of India, so that it's easier to get loans and have more job security? But personally, I believe job security isn't really a factor as a contract employee as well. All the benefits of a full-time guy,
Yeah.
but just because of legality, I'm a contract-based guy. Do you think there's a difference
Yeah.
between an Indian company like as a full-time guy or working as a contractor? Should that be a factor
Yeah.
deciding jobs or
Yeah.
not?
So that's a good one, actually. What I have noticed is that there are pros and cons to both aspects, be it contractual job or full-time roles, right? And like you said, stability does not exist anymore. Look at the mass layoffs nowadays. Yeah, you don't even get notice period. You just get an email that you are fired, right? So even if you have spent like 15, 20 years in an organization, you can get fired any day. So stability is like now very old school concept. Now, when it comes to contract or which is also called gig economy. So I think that is an opportunity for younger professionals. And in order to really enjoy gig work and contract work, you have to really dig deeper into a skill, into your niche. So make sure that you pick a particular niche so that organizations, even if they are hiring you for part-time roles, they are after you and you are not after them. And that will only happen when you upskill yourself, when you learn about technologies, when you learn how to do your job well. And the beauty of contract work is that you are not bound with that organization. So gig work, so there are a lot of pros to gig work. And the cons to gig work is, of course, stability, in the sense that you don't get PF or you don't get other employee benefits, which you generally get in an organization. But that is something that an individual has to decide. Is it stability that they want more, knowing that stability does not exist in the long term? Yeah, so that is the truth. So you have to make peace with that. That okay, you might get PF, you might get all of these benefits, but it's not sustainable. It's not long term. वो कभी भी मतलब वो bubble burst हो सकता है. And then there is contractual gig wherein you are more of a specialized person. So organizations are after you because you know that job and you know how to do that job well. So I think that is something for the individual to decide whether they want to be a specialized person or whether they uh, want to be in like a payroll and enjoy, stability, short-term stability, or jab tak hai wo stability. So I think that is more of an individual call.
But if you want to work out of Bali or Thailand, gig jobs as well.
Gig job, yeah, of course. And a lot of countries have also started this, what do you call it? This visa, digital nomad visa. Yeah,
Yeah.
so a lot of countries have started that. And a
Yeah, so
lot
once you
of people
have
are,
monthly
yeah,
income of 2K or something, they offer you visa to work remotely from that place. Like Amsterdam has it. I think Dubai has
yeah.
it.
Yeah. So what we are seeing as a pattern, what we are seeing is a large specialized workforce is moving towards gig economy. So that is the trend that we are seeing. So now we have to pick whether we want to be specialized, and in the in-house roles, you will see more of generalists. So people who are good at managing things. And in gig economy, you will see very, very specialized roles like cyber security can be one. Instructional designing can be another. Psychotherapy is also very specialized. So you have to pick. If you are someone like a nerd of sorts or someone who is specialized, then gig economy is probably for you. But if you're more of a generic person who can manage things well, then organizations or the traditional, stability sort of jobs would be a better fit. So it is also about your fitment when it comes to your strength and the organization and what you want in life. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Thanks, Aman. Thank you so much. Tanmay, is there any other queries maybe on some other streams?
So, there's basically one question from my end. So, I realized it while I was working with different organizations, but when I'm looking for an organization, how can I align my expectation with my job search? So, basically, in an interview, what kind of question should I ask to, like match my expectations? Because my expectations can be around leave policies, and it can be about the culture and like micromanagement. So how to actually fish for such knowledge about that organization without coming off as a red flag, as Amin said.
Got it. Got it. So when it comes to culture, because culture becomes very important when it comes to your fitment. And I have noticed that there are different kind of people. So there is one set of people who thrive in, very hierarchical kind of a environment wherein there is a boss, there is a hierarchy, and things are relatively slower, but they do things right. And you have a lot of stability per se. So if you are someone who likes being organized and you like working in a hierarchical setting, then look for jobs in like big organizations, well established organizations. But if you are someone who likes to think out of the box, who does not mind hustle, then look for jobs in startups. So that is one. Second is, how do you fetch for fitment, right? What sort of questions can you ask? So a couple of questions that you can ask is related to culture would be, one is, what sort of behaviors get rewarded and what sort of behaviors get discouraged in your organization? So that will give you a good solid picture of what to expect in a role. So behaviors that are encouraged in a hierarchical setup would be discipline, punching in, punching out, coming on time, being organized. These are some of the behaviors that they encourage. And they discourage things like taking decisions on your own without seeking approval, right? So then if you are not someone like that, you will get the sense that, oh, this organization is not for me. Cut to a startup, most likely they will say things like, we encourage behaviors such as thinking outside the box, innovation, or moving fast. Yeah. And behaviors that we discourage are, and encouragement could also be that we don't track what time you're coming to the office, what time you're going, as long as you're producing results, right? So that is something we encourage. And we discourage bureaucracy. We don't want people to wait for their seniors' orders in order to do something. So that is something they discourage, right? So that way you will be able to assess whether you as a candidate, you are a good fit vis-a-vis hierarchy driven organization, or a startup adhocracy kind of a culture startup.
So,
Then so yeah,
Gurleen, sorry
I think
about that. So, Gurleen, since you have like consulted with companies both based out of India and the Western companies, do you think the stereotype is true that Western companies have a better culture than Indian companies? Like, what's your take? I believe it's sort of true. Generally, people tend to avoid companies if they have a lot of Indians working there because of the culture and everything and the hierarchy that you mentioned.
yeah,
And European companies, Western companies
yeah,
are a bit more chill and believe way more in work-life balance. But I could be totally off.
yeah.
Just want to know your thoughts as well.
No, this is actually true, but there is a rationale behind it. The rationale being, if you look at countries like India, China, or overpopulated countries, so you will see that there are so many people to replace you, right? And if we look at India, India as a geography, we will we will see that a lot of work is given to us by Western organizations. Like, a lot of offshore teams are over here. So they are not really, when it comes to bigger organizations, they are not really doing the strategy work. They are the offshore businesses, right? Wherein you are servicing to the client. So it's very service oriented culture, which is why when you are working with, say, some French organization or an American organization, you adjust to their timings. So they are not the ones who are going to take calls depending on our time zone, or with our comfort. We have to, adapt ourselves according to their comfort zone. So that is because of population, then there is geography, then there are a lot of factors. So there are reasons why in Western countries there is a lot of emphasis on human elements, work-life balance, work-life integration. So a lot of focus is given on that. Yeah, so I agree more or less that yes, Indian organizations do not focus so much on culture vis-a-vis emotional culture, because culture is also like, culture is not just emotional feelings. Culture is also your purpose, values, behaviors that you reward and discourage, and policies, all of that. And then there is emotional culture. You are specifically talking about emotional culture. So I agree, Western organizations definitely have better work-life balance. And another reason is also that, again, pros and cons. Because of our population, a lot of Indians, we are able to afford house help, right? A lot of us have full-time house help. But when it comes to Europeans or Americans, it's very, very difficult to afford house help, right? So after they go back to their homes, they have to manage everything from childcare to maintaining the house to cooking, all of that. So both has its pros and cons. So yeah, so it's not a very simple answer. There are a lot of nuances, there are a lot of reasons, there are a lot of gray shades, and there are both pros and cons to both sort of geographical cultures.
I think demand and supply also plays a big factor because I believe like Indians are way more replaceable for lack of better words. And if
Yeah.
you find 100 guys lined up for the same job, they're like, okay, if you don't want to work, just leave. You'll just get some other guy.
Sadly, yes. Yeah.
There's a question by Ankit Singh. So
Yeah.
let's promise the last question for the day now. Again, promise for the third time. Do you think the lack of process in startups is camouflaged as hustle? It's not as much as interview
Hmm.
question, but I think towards startup culture.
Lack of process in startups. That's a good, I think more than a question, that's a good observation. Yeah, so a lot of startups do not have again, there are pros and cons. So if they have like and I also understand by processes, we don't mean we need to have like very rigid processes. We can definitely have lean policies. Like when Netflix started, they had very, very lean policies. And even when they were a mid-sized organization, the policies were very lean. For example, they did not have a leave policy. They had a policy which said use good judgment. Yeah, so they trusted their employees to follow good judgment. So that was the policy. It was a very lean policy. So yeah, I agree that in a lot of startups, when you do not have policies, and more than policies, I feel if you don't have values, if you don't have culture in place, then everything is chaotic. Yeah, so people get confused. So there is a lot of overwork that is done, and which is of no use actually, because you complete something and then you hand it over, and then you realize that, oh, it doesn't even match with the brief, or that wasn't even expected in the first place. So because of miscommunication, because of lack of processes, you are hustling, 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 but for what? Because if hustling is leading to something, it makes sense. But if you are hustling, but it doesn't lead you anywhere, then it is a waste of effort, it is waste of time. And even for the organization, it does not make sense. So partially, I agree that lack of process in startups is camouflaged as hustle. But in some of the organizations, startup organizations, if you have like good values in place, for instance, Netflix or Zappos, these are some good organizations that are value driven. They have value driven cultures rather than policy driven or processes driven cultures. Yeah. Thank you, Ankit. Yeah, and that was a great observation as well.
So I think that is it. Gurleen, thank you so much. I think we covered many of the queries from our audiences as well.
And I
I
see
think
people are still joining in. Oh, yeah. So there are like a couple of people in the queue. Yeah. Okay.
yeah. So like this has been recorded. So we'll be, sending out this recordings to the audiences, to all our community members as well. Maybe it was the, weekday. That could be the reason not many people was able to join. But of course, like this recording will be shared with the members, and we'll be
Sure.
also be creating resources that you have shared, like, the book that you recommended and the top skills that are out there. So we'll be also helping those to our community members.
Sure.
Yeah. So thanks again, Gurleen. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for this great session, Gurleen. I'm sure like this must be, like helping